our parents had the idea that they should tell us everything that was happening, whatever it might be, including being employed, being unemployed, the possibility of jail. All of those things were always openly discussed. They weren't kept from us. Neither one of us ever felt that our father had done anything wrong, and yet at the same time, the government is so remote, it's very difficult to sort of project it as the enemy. The committee actually stopped the hearings at that point because they were unsure of the legal ramifications of what they were doing and also the political acceptance of what they were proposing. The studios, a few weeks after the hearings, came forth with what's known as the Waldorf Agreement, which was a meeting at the Waldorf Astoria Hotel in New York, at which they decided that these 10 men would be blacklisted in the film industry.
We will forthwith discharge or suspend without compensation those in our employ, and we will not re-employ any of the 10 until such time as he is acquitted or has purged himself of contempt and declares under oath that he is not a communist.
So that was essentially the end of his career as an employed motion picture writer.
I didn't see any reason to repent. I had gone to defend my industry and democracy as I understood it, only to be punished by the very industry I was trying to defend. It was bewildering. But I also was as blacklisted as if I had been a communist.
The black list, of course, creates a black market. Suddenly in 1947, some very high-priced talent was available and unemployed. And the black market was born. Perhaps the instant was when a man named Frank King, who was one of the King brothers, a B-movie production company, approached my father to write something for them. He wrote a motion picture called Gun Crazy that a number of people think very highly of today as a precursor to Bonnie and Clyde and a number of other pictures like that. I think he was paid $3,500 for that. At the same time, he began working for other people in the same way. The Hollywood 10 were sentenced to jail. There were a series of appeals, and in 1950, the appeals having run out, the Hollywood 10 went to jail. We had known for 3 or 4 years that this was a real possibility. And when it did happen, it was not a surprise, and it was something that we were perfectly well prepared for. During the summer of 1951, my mother, my younger sister, and I went by train to Ashland, Kentucky, where my father was in jail and served approximately 9 or 10 months with time off for good behavior. And I remember as we approached the prison that there was a huge guard tower with a machine gun mounted on top of it, which I thought was wonderful. I mean, I'd seen all the Jim Cagney movies, and I thought this was the big house, and this was a great thing. And when we met him in the visiting room, he was just wearing khakis, which were very much like the clothes that he wore when he came back from the Second World War as a war correspondent. The next day, I think my parents wanted to discuss some things that they felt weren't my business. And so I went to a matinee at one of the movie houses. And when I went immediately for the balcony because I loved sitting in the balcony. But I wasn't allowed to go there because in this house, only black people sat in the balcony. And this struck me as, a boy from California, as being an extraordinary thing, and led me to think that this is, there's something wrong here when my father is in jail for un-American activities, and then meanwhile you got apartheid, on the other side of the fence. That the prison was more integrated than the society outside it.
In order to feed his own family, Dalton had to keep writing screenplays that were given someone else's name on the screen. The Front, it was called.
In the case of Roman Holiday, which he had written the script for, his close friend Ian Hunter put his name in front of the screenplay and did some rewriting on it also.
That was a very brave thing for any writer to do, to front for a blacklisted writer, because if it ever came out, if it ever became known that he in fact had not written that screenplay, that writer was finished.
There were a number of things like this as the blacklist continued. There was the case of a film called The Brave One, which my father won an Academy Award for in 1956. The name on the motion picture was Robert Rich as the writer of the original story. Robert Rich was actually the nephew of the King brothers, and the problem with Robert Rich was not that he didn't exist, but that had he appeared before a camera, everyone would realize that he could never have written anything. That was an embarrassing moment as the press became aware that Robert Rich couldn't be found, and it was speculated that a blacklisted writer had actually done it.
So nobody showed up to claim the Oscar, but everybody in the audience at the Oscars that year knew that it was Trumbo who had written it, and that's why nobody showed up.
Later on, my father claimed credit for that, and so that became a further scandal. But it was that was one of the first breakthroughs by a blacklisted writer.
He wrote a little booklet that I don't know is even available anywhere, certainly out of print, called The Time of the Toad, all about his experience, and it's brilliant. It's Dalton. It's brilliant, it's gutsy, it's irreverent, it's cynical, it's furious. It's absolutely outraged.
By the late 1950s, my father and several other blacklisted writers were actually getting to do good films. My father was hired by Kirk Douglas to write Spartacus, which Kirk and Bryna, his company, were doing along with Universal.
I happened to read a letter in the LA Times that Kirk Douglas wrote, at pure chance, because I don't generally read the letters to the editor, in which he described how he got Trumbo off the blacklist. And it happened more or less by accident. He was doing Spartacus, and they had replaced the original director with Stanley Kubrick. And Kubrick and he were looking at the script, and Kubrick said, "I'd like to get the writer in, and we can rework some of the script." And somebody said, "Oh well, he can't come on the lot." And the writer was Dalton Trumbo, and he's not allowed on the lot. And Douglas said, "Well, that's nonsense. Of course he can come on the lot." He said, "Give me the phone." And he called the front gate and said, "Leave a drive-on pass for Dalton Trumbo. This is Kirk Douglas." So they did, and Trumbo drove to the studio and came on the lot, and the heavens didn't fall. When Trumbo got on the lot was when the heads of Universal were busy with other matters, with divesting themselves of the agency, and so nobody noticed. And once it happened, they were going to give him credit, and he was actually there working on the script. So that was kind of, Douglas said, in a funny way, I think I was one of the people who helped to end the blacklist by doing that.
In December of 1959, after he had finished doing Spartacus, he went to work for Otto Preminger, who had approached him with the Leon Uris's novel Exodus. In January of 1960, which is only a month or two later, Preminger announces in the New York Times that he has hired Dalton Trumbo to write Exodus, and his name will appear in the film. Kirk had intended to put Trumbo's name on Spartacus, but had not yet announced it and not yet done so. So, in effect, Preminger was the first person to actually announce that my father's name would appear on the picture. In August of the same year, Kirk Douglas made the same announcement, and in December of 1960, both pictures opened. And so my father had Spartacus and Exodus opening the same year. So that ended 13 years without a credit. Now, oddly, what people thought was that the blacklist would be over, that it would be ended at this point.
There was no exact end to the blacklist.
What happened was that they discovered, blacklisted writers, directors, actors, is that everybody had to fight the battle to become unblacklisted on their own.
And it's true, it was a year or two later that John Frankenheimer made a picture called Seconds. And for the first time, an old friend of mine, Jeff Corey, got to work on camera again. John Randolph and Will Gear and people like that, who'd been blacklisted and hadn't worked at all, suddenly they were all working in that picture and the blacklist was over for the actors, finally.
By the time it was not an issue any longer, the people making films didn't know my work. There were those, including Ronald Reagan, who maintained they never watched.